stopped working. The audio's going through for some reason. That's not coming on. It's something. They're on. For some reason the lights aren't coming on there.
Let us pray. Father God, thank you for letting us gather here today on this first day of summer. Thank you for the rain for our fields and farms and gardens. Let us make good decisions and be kind to each other and always say unto you that we're. I pray, amen.
To the flag of the United States, the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remind you, these are all on. Would you like me to call the roll? All right. Ms. Bechtel?
Present.
Ms. Cookenbook?
Here.
All right. Mr. Cox?
Here.
Mr. Booth?
Here.
And Mr. Turman?
Here.
All right. Let's stay for baseball. Full count. So, and it's a lot of rain, isn't it?
Hello.
She can just stay in the yard.
Well, you know that won't. It's rain a lot.
Mm-hmm. So, and of course, you all have an electronic copy of the whole thing. And then what I put in front of you is a copy of what was in the paper. And of course, you will recall that we ran this in the Roanoke Times officially as our paper of record, and then also put it in the Floyd Press. And there was one small correction that we had to make, and thanks to Lisa for catching it right away. So we put the correction in the very next day. So again, the help, the usefulness of having a daily paper for these things makes a big difference. And so the difference I just wanted to bring to your attention was the real estate number is listed as 65 and mobile home was listed as 63, but it does say below that these are the same rates. So, and then we put a correction in to change it back to 60. What Lisa reminded us, and oddly enough, it's the same error we made last year because we copied it from last year. So we want to do that again, is that the real estate and mobile home have to be the same amount, which you all chose to be 65 cents. And then beyond that, Ms. Chair, if you'd like, I can walk through a couple of highlights. And then, of course, then it's up to y'all. So in terms of some of the major items, excuse me, you know, when Kim and I wrote our well, first of all, as you know, back in the winter, all the department heads put in their request, and Kim and I's recommendation cut about $350,000 out of those requests. And so as I walk through here, I can show you where some of those larger changes were. Of course, the Board of Supervisors number remains pretty much the same all across. And then county administration, actually, we did go up a little bit in there. And most of that, though, has to do with realigning where the IT funds are. Before they had been, Cindy and I had split them when we were leaving Tech Squared in a couple of different buckets to not make it as clear if we were going to a third party how much we had available. So now we've pulled that all back together. So that's what most of that difference is. The auditor number there is actually probably going to be a little bit low. I will tell you that. As you all are aware, Kim and I went and met with Scott and the managing director at our auditing firm, and so their price will go up a little bit more, as well as the things that we are responsible, not in terms of giving to them, but in terms of things we have to follow. So I will note for you all and for the record, just as a side note, one of the things they're going to be checking is how well we are following the sheriff's budget manual, Virginia Sheriff's Budget Manual. So then they send us one because we haven't had one. So I'm sure it'll be fine, but just that's going to be something that's going to be new for this year. Assessors, of course, we had some discussion previously about that. The treasurer's office pretty much stayed in line, with the exception, of course, we did you all put a little bit more money in for salaries, and of course that's what's reflected in most of these things. The electoral board, we were able to shave quite a bit out of that, and so far you all have hung with that, mostly through really great work by Danny and Kevin, finding some good resources that were free and cheap, and also being able to repurpose some equipment that we already had. So that's where one of your big savings has been, and really appreciate their help in getting that all done. The registrar's office, that change is primarily, again, just a little bit for salaries. Then the circuit court, Rhonda continues to be an amazing penny pincher for us, so appreciate that. Kept it same. And you'll see the rest of those numbers are very similar, and you all have kept them at a very similar place. Let's see any other highlights. The sheriff's office, we've talked about the SRO position, and I did go ahead and send the official letter. They had said, we didn't see this yet, if there's a way to work it out, but there was not, because the new hire has to go to the academy, which they had to start sooner. So compared to other folks, though, I will say, as a side note on that, the meeting that Mr. Booth and I went to for VACO, one of my counterparts stood up and said the county is covering 9 SRO positions in their county. So the fact that we have one, it's pretty good. So I just wanted to put that out there. And of course, they've also gotten a little over $250,000 grant, which they're going to use primarily for leasing a couple of additional vehicles and some ammunition cost. We have asked them to not put anything through on that until the 1st of July, just so it'll help keep our record keeping a little tighter. Of course, building inspections, again, the compensation was the difference there. Trying to think of anything else that was significant. And so you'll see under emergency services some of that IT stuff that's been moving around. Other highlights. I'm on what would be a paper page 13 for the health department. Just again, as kind of an update. We did get an MOU for me to sign with the health department about how much it was, but it turns out it's the one from agreeing to what we paid them 2 years ago. So we said, okay, which was less. Okay, I'll pay you less. And that kind of gets us into some of our other items, kind of the standard amount for the Agency on Aging, the community college, all of those kind of things. Then you have a long list of things from Jacob on recreation. And you'll see one of the big changes we made this year in what we presented to you all is to try to collapse a lot of those small categories. So he had a little bit of money for each sport and instead try to put it all together. Again, as a side note, I will say Jacob's been running very close to over budget, maybe a little bit over budget this year. But as of Saturday night, they made $7,400 out of the All-Star game.
Excellent.
So yeah. So we're like, put it in before July 1. So he's working on those kind of things. We do have some costs that are not reflected in here. I will tell you, I didn't want to mess with your document. Let you all pass it, and then if you all need, if we need to make some changes or pull something out of contingency later, we can. But two of the larger expenses that are not reflected in here, one has to do with doing some work on the fields. The lip on the side is getting really quite large and unsafe. I had some parents actually, and not the usual suspect of complaining parents, some ones that usually don't say anything, have some safety concerns about how large the lip is getting and how hard. Yep, that's getting pretty high, and the ground is getting very hard. So we need to do some things there, put some sand in, do some aerating, and all of that will cost some money. And then the other thing a couple of you all are aware of, that we were just talking about, but again, for the record, this weekend during the All-Star game, we had the sewage system starting to back up both in the new building and by the concession stand, which suggests it's not the individual plumbing, it is the pipe. And so Mr. Booth reported back to me this morning that it was snaked before or cambered before. And I think it was snaked, Dan told me it was snaked 2-3 weeks ago. So there's going to have to be some work there, potentially digging up that pipe and straightening it out, because there is a dip in there, and the dip has gravel.
Last year, doubtful.
Yeah, so those are two outstanding costs there that
I hope that's what. Hope there's no-
That is our pipe, not
Yes.
PSA's pipe.
yes, it is on our side of the meter.
Correct.
Yes, it is. So just looming cost out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then just,
Just a large holding tank kind of pumped out,
you know,
because this is a repeating issue.
well,
Over
it's
time,
probably
that tank will pay for,
Right.
pays for itself for sure, but this is one of those things that it just wasn't properly put in to begin.
Or best I remember, there's a lot of field dirt up there.
Yeah,
You know, a lot of compaction went on back in the 90s.
Yep.
And
There's some
there's
big
a lot of
trucks.
free labor.
PSA's problems.
yeah,
You
okay,
used what was economical at the time,
yep.
and
Paid for it later.
you didn't realize down the road how everything was going to come together.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, and if it's under the part that's, the parking, that's gravel, and there's some very heavy trucks that end up in there. Yeah, we got the trash trucks, but also the gravel trucks that come in.
That's the designated turnaround area.
So, again, not suggesting any changes, but just making you aware that there are looming things that will start to eat up what y'all put aside as contingency. So just need to make you aware.
We make it, get it working.
Yeah. And the concept for jetting it and so forth.
You can do that, but since you got one spot there, it's sagging down,
Yeah,
or you jetting it out into another little spot.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say,
yeah,
and they just compound your problem,
yeah.
blow it all in one spot, and then you got work.
I'll just Linda and Mark decide which way they want to go on that.
The thing we paid him to be for that.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, and Mark is on vacation this week, by the way. His family, Mark Bolts, is on vacation, and they're at the beach somewhere. So Carla's also out this week. Other changes as I kind of move through. Yes, sir.
Because I would, it went out last year, but
Mention, thank you for doing that, Jerry. Yeah, that is troubling.
we need to these people, we need to be ordinary.
Yeah.
Do stuff on it. And
Yes, Jacob has been, so he has been much higher, he's been much more communicative. So I think, because we did have some challenges during the All-Star game and stuff. And so he's let me know about some of that, and I shared some of that with you all. And then even this week, you sent me, or this morning, sent me a note. By the way, for obvious reasons, this week is supposed to be football camp. So yesterday they were outside, but today the rest of the week they're probably not going to be, and people might complain about that, but it's kind of you see outside. So just again, but to your point, he's been doing a better job, so we were able to let you all know a little bit better.
I understand people. Like the Bud Light in
Yeah,
it.
yeah. They do that at the high school. I can't remember, or at the rec park. I can't remember. The other ones are the football team. It's at the high. I thought it was at the high school. If it is, then they are very protective of their turf. Let's see.
So they moved it.
Mm-hmm. So yes, so Jacob said, be sure to tell them when you see them tomorrow morning. Yeah, he called me yesterday. Okay. Then I guess I'm looking at what is my page 17. Just some of the, many of your contributions. That's all the community groups are very similar to previous years. You did have a new request, which we did not recommend and you did not fund, but for the Christiansburg Institute. So that's probably highlighted. And of course, there was a change in how you all are distributing the arts funds. So that's reflected there. And Mr. Booth had also, and you all had requested you all approved to make a change to community services and how much went to them. So that's reflected in here. And extension reflects an increase that they brought to us back in January. But I'm trying to see anything else in here that's really great. We did, you'll notice as we kind of move into the environmental fund, 50 solid waste, one of the changes in the layout you'll see it was appreciated by our audit staff as we're really trying to line up the capital outlays a little bit better. They've been kind of separate, kind of rolled into departments, and so we're going to try to match that up a little better.
So how do you mean by that?
So some of the capital outlays, for instance, Mark's budget always looks terrible. And that always has to do with the anything that's bought for the transfer station is on his budget and throws it off. So for the most part, you'll see here that it's specifically tagged as capital outlay.
Right.
And then as we move forward with Munis, Jenny here and Kim have been working really hard on what is probably the hardest part of going to Munis is moving to the state recommended chart of accounts. Gotcha. And so that also has a very particular way of laying out capital. So it can be reflected if it's assuming you all continue to kind of move forward on developing a capital and equipment budget, then that can be matched up well against that. So it's a little bit clearer about where your money's going and to the community too, that you're investing in these capital things. It's not just that the solid waste budget is huge. It's like, well, it's not the solid waste budget. It's really the capital outlays. Of course, the solid waste budget is pretty huge anyway, but to clarify those things.
So to further clarify, you're saying that what we'll do in the future, money will be pulled from everybody's different budget where a capital outlay is there. So their budgets are going to look smaller, but the capital outlay now take the majority of those things. How will we be able to track other than, obviously, box site development, would be to solid waste, but is there a way for us to, in that budgeting with Munis, say which departments go where?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll get into those weeds later. I just want to make sure we don't move the trees for the forest, as it were.
Yes. Yeah. The way I understand it, the reporting in Munis can be a lot more detailed than what we currently have.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing.
Yep. And then,
Wonderful.
yeah, and then I guess the final two things I would highlight is one, I failed to mention on the economic development budget, which is you do include some funds in there for comp plan. And that is going to be matched with some ARC funds and allow us to do that together. In addition, I think I've mentioned to you in passing before, Ladina is applying for an EDA grant for us for economic resiliency. We are the only county in our region that qualifies to apply. So she worked on it a lot over the weekend. So that might have some match, but we're going to try to roll it all together with the comp plan and all that, and hopefully keep the amount of the match required for that as low as we can. But so that's embedded in here. And then the last thing is, of course, where you all ended up with salaries. Let's see. The budget includes, I double checked with Kim since she put it all, and thank you all for giving us a little breathing room this morning. The budget includes 5% for all employees, and money was added to contingency in the event 2% more was needed for comp board positions only. And then she did note last I read the increase does happen. It would not happen until after January. But again, that's not certain. And if I might, maybe Mr. Booth can help clarify this. I will say when he and I went to the VACO meeting, I guess it's been a week ago or so, what was reported was the intention by one of the legislators there was their intention that about 48 hours after the polls close today, they'll get serious and probably about a call, and we'll probably vote on a budget next week. And I don't know if you have more information, Mr. Booth.
First of next week. Should be. Wait until after the primaries are over. Then they can vote. I wanted to vote, and no repercussion on the primary.
Yeah.
And I guess they figure everybody will forget by November if they win, so.
And you asked them to be interested, because I heard John on News and Access one saying that there's 41 Democrat seats out of 16. Maybe a swap both ways.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something that was mentioned as well, that both houses might shift, and so you'd still end up with divided. It's just who's in charge of which one.
See, you have a lot of
Yeah.
party, they vote a you can.
Who was the?
3D is one. And, saw one fellow project, and he was not going to win his primary.
Legislator there.
He wasn't even from in our area.
He was the other senator. He's the transportation guy. He chairs their transportation.
He got invited to this one and the one for his district. He said, just go to both. He said, it'd be easy. I get the same speech for both. But I got the impression from him, he was not happy delaying all this either. He wanted to get it done.
Hmm. That's all I had on the expenditure side. we're hopeful that's reflective of all your intentions.
Should increase it. And I told them, "Don't just leave it where it's at, and if we have extra travels, then it shouldn't be that much. Move stuff all we can do.
And it's for next year, when we're
Right.
doing our budgets, we see.
It'll give us a better idea. It was going different looking system. Like I'll be doing Vaco, but Vaco needs to take care of that. But
They take care of them.
I mean, once I get started. We'll figure
The
it out.
county will have to take care of nowhere. On the committee,
Okay.
and they do ours. So it's like in August, they'll pay for one and they. County pay for county.
So yeah, that was kind of our suggestion, is if we could hold off moving money until
Yeah,
we know
makes
how
sense.
much, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're gonna end up with these little pots
Yeah.
that aren't all that useful. And then I was remiss, and Jenny even reminded me this morning, and just as a side note, because it won't change what we recommend, but just so you're aware, it sounds like you all didn't actually pick 10 or 15 years on the bank building. So Steve sent us some panic. Hey,
Whatever, 15.
so just as a side note, I failed to mention that about the agenda earlier. Just so I'll go back and write it in. But if you don't mind, we got to do 10 or 15. All right. On the motion to amend the agenda to include discussion and guidance on the loan for the bank 10 or 15 years, Mr. Booth?
Yep.
Ms. Cookenbook?
Yes.
Ms. Bechtel?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yeah.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Apologies about
In the future, when you do our agendas
Uh-huh.
and the meetings, just put, what it's for and other business that may be conducted. And
that. True. Another business, okay. Other, yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
we're gonna come to agreement on 15
Yeah, we did, just as long as we could pay it off if we,
early.
and we
after-
all do after.
We still only 3 after 5 years.
Yeah.
David thinks you picked 10.
I think we discussed
Steve.
picking the 15 with the intention of finishing up in 10.
Right.
Yeah, I think
think
Steve's
it's
been texting both Christina this morning about all this. This said David Rose was assuming you all went with 10-year term.
I think you
Because it was the more
discussed that.
attractive.
It was more attractive. Yeah, Jen's right.
The rate is the same. Isn't it? Okay.
Anyway, apologies that I diverted us. I had a squirrel moment there. Sorry. It does. It does. Yeah, I don't have a number to change it to or from at this point, but it is something that, since you all had rightfully instructed us to try to get this moving, that's the key part.
No, the 10 years, 4.95%. 15 is 5.22%. Tax exempt interest rate was 3.91. 15 is 4.12.
Yeah, and I think David said something in a different setting about thinking, I think David said something separately in a different setting about he had kind of assumed 10, but we need to let you. We can, sorry, I muddled the two, so I don't know if you want to move forward with that or have your budget discussion, but.
So we did, so here, So are prepayable in whole or any payment date subject to the following? On the 10-year loan, year 1 through 3 is no call, year 4 is 1% penalty, year 5 plus is no penalty. On the 15-year loan, year 1 through 4 is no call, year 5 through 6 is 1% penalty, and then year 7 is no penalty.
I thought we had talked about the 10
Mhm.
because we were saying that we'll have 2 years, for Skyline, basically paid.
Correct.
Then we'll just have 8 years left.
Yeah.
That's what they did. That's what was discussed.
That
last
was the
meeting.
discussion. I think you and I were.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
What
I.
was the payment? Yeah,
Um,
payment difference
hold on.
between the 10 and the 15?
Before we get into too many rabbit trails when we're discussing it, we need to keep on point because it confuses our dogs right.
Really remember that 2 year, they're paying it, we just have 8 years to go. Because I thought, well, 8 years, don't seem that long.
But the higher interest for those years that it's not tax exempt will add up real quick.
But it will be hard. Yeah.
But then we'll be paying interest on. We'll be paying more.
Debt service estimates on a 10-year loan. 2024, 58,025. The planning estimate should be 64,472. In 2025, 99,000. And planning estimate is 10. So those are the 2 years that the banks lease. And then in 2026, it comes up to 292,534, 292,570, about 629, 292,578. So basically 292,000.
Thank you.
Now on the 10-year, and then on the 15,
Steve's around if you want us to call him.
Right.
Steve is available for a call if you all have any questions, since he was also here, if that helps. I had poor timing.
15 years, 61,190, 144, and 25. Then it turns into 2026, 200 and 155, and then it's like 199. Yeah, about 100,000. Yeah, it's 100,000 difference.
A year.
Yep.
What page are you?
That's page 7 for the 10, page 8 for the 15.
And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if it would be useful to get up with Steve to get a little more insight, or no, that's up to you. Sure. Well, you, that,
Let's take anything out. So it's
What is his number?
757
Is that?
784 2532. Thank you. Sorry.
Good morning. Good.
Good morning, Steve. You are in the meeting with us. So, Steve, we are having our special meeting to approve the budget. And we were discussing your question about 10 or 15 years. And since I wasn't here for that meeting, I'm only of so much assistance. And I think we have somewhat varied memories on what the thought was. So the chairman and I thought it might be a good idea to give you a ring.
I understand.
And he is,
So I think that, clearly we approved moving forward with this, and the bank has been preparing documents, Sands Anderson and Davenport as well. And I guess the key question is, did we elect the 15 or the 10-year term? I think we need to clarify that. And I'm looking to see if I don't have the Davenport presentation in front of me, but if you bear with me, I should be able to pull that up.
Yeah, and I think if I might make sure you all that I'm paraphrasing correctly, I think Danny and Jenny, from the staff perspective, are thinking their best memory is 10, and I think some of the board members thought it was 10, and some thought it was 15, with the opportunity to pay it off sooner at 10. But of course, we would have to be making some moves to do that, a commitment to do that, because yeah. Otherwise, you'll just end up at 15, which is, I will say, for my personal finances, always a little tempting. So I think that, Mr. Chairman, does that seem a good? Okay, thank you. So, and I have shared with them that David Rose was under the impression it was 10.
Right. I remember closed session last week, David mentioned, I think just something off the cuff, that it was, he was sort of assuming that it was the 10 as well. Let me see. Do you all have the
We have
Davenport presentation?
Yeah, we have a couple of copies distributed amongst us right now.
Okay.
And of course, their recommendation, I understand, was the 10. Because it's 150,000 lower across the life of the loan, below the planning estimate.
I've got the presentation now in front of me. I guess, there are pros and cons either way. I think that the way it stands right now, you are free to elect one or the other. I think we should make that determination sooner rather than later. So if we could take action today, that would be beneficial. As far as if you all have any questions, I do have the presentation up in front of me now as well.
Well, and I understand the appeal of the 10-year, but when you're getting on down into them later years, you're talking about 100,
Almost $100,000.
you're basically talking an additional $100,000 in payment. I thought we had looked at it and decided that what we would do was go with the 15-year payment plan, and then the boards, as they go along, if they want to make additional payments on the principal, then we could pay it off in 10 years. As the funds were available, is what I thought, but now I'm like Joe.
And
When we get to talking about too much, sometimes I lose track, and of course, we don't take minutes in those conversations either, so. But
yeah.
I thought that's what we had said, that we would do the 15-year and try and pay it off in 10. And that would leave options open for future boards instead of us tying them down to this first set of numbers. That was my memory, and it may not have been. We may have discussed it, and the majority decided to go another way. I thought.
Well, and I do recall that coming up, and there would be the ability to pay additional amounts to principal early. Looks like there's on the 10-year, there's no call from 1 to 3. Year 4, 1% penalty. Year 5, no penalty. On the 15-year, 1% penalty if you pay it off by year 5 or between years 5 and 6, and then year 7 plus you could pay it off with no penalty.
But you can make your payments, standard payments, and then you can add extra to go toward principal without penalty, as long as you're not paying it off. Is that
That was my understanding.
right?
That was my understanding from the Davenport presentation, and I think David Rose had essentially said that in closed session as well, right? That was my recollection.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That was the thing for me that made the 15-year appealing. You're not tying some of those boards up to those exact numbers, and you had the ability to still pay down the principal. Because the majority of the first payments is going for the interest. That's standard.
Right.
As with
Yeah.
any loan. But,
And those first 2 years when it's leased, you'll have the income stream from the bank.
Right.
Yeah.
my whole idea behind it, that long term is the numbers and not tying the hands of future board.
Get that. That $100,000 could be difficult.
It's almost a penny on the real estate if you give it time. Depending on what your values are, you know, 3/4 of a penny.
And kind of to maybe a little bit to Mr. Booth's point, as part of our meeting with the auditor, we had Corbin with us. So not just Scott, but the managing director. And he does a lot of revenue forecasting, and he was definitely encouraging us to look at a tax increase in future years without that. So not backing us into even more need, I guess, is kind of making your point.
That was the fund balance ratio.
Yes, that was his concern. Yes.
It sounds like you're. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, I just said go ahead, Steve.
It sounds like you're really weighing that, additional, I guess, 0.18% interest against the flexibility of having the $100,000 a year payment spread out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I see the logic either way. And, on the one hand, you always like that interest savings, but buying some flexibility, some flexibility can be important. So,
If somebody had a clear crystal ball as to what's going to happen between now and next summer, that sure would make it a whole lot easier. But everything I'm seeing, we're going into a recession, and I just think more flexibility is better.
And it's a great help.
And if interest rates drop, were to start dropping, at some point during this could be one of those that's refinanced at a lower interest rate
We've done before.
over the life of the loan, so.
Yeah.
What's that?
Or I mean, with the no call provision, if interest rates, if we have a recession and interest rates drop like this time next year, you'd still be in a position to refinance a bunch of, other debt potentially.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, you would have options.
So the consensus was to go to 15.
I'd be for the 15, but I would really like to pay some extra if we have a
Yep.
good year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so stop trying to, okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Dave.
Glad to help. Davenport is, and our bond guys in Richmond are both wanting confirmation of that. So I guess once there's a vote, you want to just send me a text, Linda? Would that work?
Sure.
We can take care of it right quick if you want. to.
While you online,
Let's do that then.
You mentioned we're going to the 15. Or 15-year.
I'll make a motion that we finance the bank on a 15-year loan with the hope that we can pay early.
second.
Motion said, call the roll.
On the motion to accept the 15-year plan from Webster Bank as presented by our financial advisors with the hope to pay earlier than 15 years. Ms. Bechtel,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook,
Yes.
all right, Mr. Cox,
Yes.
and Mr. Terman.
Yes.
All right. There you go, Steve.
That's the answer.
All right. It can't get any clearer than that. Thank you for the guidance, folks.
All right, make sure
Thank
you
you.
get plenty of gas in your motorboat. If y'all get the rain we're getting.
Oh goodness, yeah. It's I haven't seen creatures heading towards an arc yet, but it's been a lot.
Ours is brimming. You have a great day.
Thank you,
All right,
Steve.
you all too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We have to sign the paper.
All right, thank you. Well, that gets us back to if y'all have any questions on the budget, and otherwise, we'll do our best to answer. Yes. Yes.
Make sure that any money that we move is absolutely necessary. Yep, it's like a whack-a-mole board. Stuff keeps popping up. You knock it down, something else comes up.
I think we're gonna have to.
Right, right. We may have to sue it, so we probably should. Because, I was thinking the other day, when we use the organs and stuff, do we move forward? County don't see what we see. Right. They just see the money that's going out. And they don't know all these antiquated buildings coming back to bite us.
Well, and one thing we do need to do is if we're gonna have that equipment committee expand to other stuff. If we get started, but there's a whole bunch of stuff to look at. That committee, so.
actually talked a little bit about it in meeting last night. We're trying to get ahead of this green new energy stuff that's coming down the road. We're going to start planning for it now. We're trying to I can guess, what like all these electric vehicles. I'm still against them right now. I don't think there's been enough studies done. And, anytime you transition over to something, I thought it'd be slow. The way it seems like federal government's just don't shut things. Think or swing.
I was thinking along those lines too, you and I have been talking about not only fire, but EMS needing training. But I got thinking too, we probably should include, the sheriff's office in that too, because usually they're the first ones on the scene.
Absolutely.
So they need training to recognize what, you get that stuff, so they're gonna have to recognize what it is and may have to evacuate a certain area. Getting all the vehicles out.
We're thinking one of these days, you will see a lot of stuff from me.
And we don't have to supply them with masks as well. They're rolling up on the scene, they know it's an electric vehicle, then as part of their turnout gear, they need some kind of protective breathing device in just assessing the situation.
I still think it'd be a good idea sometime if we ever get some breathing room let's have fire chiefs come in and maybe the head of the EMS and sit in and talk to us what they see. We coming down the road. Sometimes they get stuff we don't, and have Kevin in here too, because when I brought that up, Kevin had already received some information on that. Same page so that they walk in here wanting a bunch of money, we don't know what they're talking about. That's just
Well, and also, of course, school system has their own mechanics, but like we get into electric vehicles, and we're gonna have to have someone that's certified in working on those vehicles somewhere. And I don't know how many of those there are.
Around here. Trust me.
two things that
But they have to do something. I wanted that too. This may force us into that.
no reflection in any of our garages. They did do a great job. But if we got a county garage, we can buy in bulk. We have our own tenants. And you don't have the county vehicles scattered all over the county. You government centralized location where they can work on getting that. I mean, to me, it's just a win. But that's a fight for another day.
And
We took care of your administration building for.
I like this better than the administration building, please. About 38 or 40 million better.
So, this is no reflection on anybody, but when you started off our discussions, it's been the sort of privilege of this board in years past that, and you guys have done excellent work, but I would have liked to have seen a lot of those requests, and I would have liked to seen all of your cuts, like how you went through and came up with what you cut. And do I have that somewhere?
I think all of your
I
Well,
mean,
the requests are in that
They're in
folder.
that package and
Yeah.
only,
in the computer, okay, and then it's a matter of, so when you went and did everything and you came up with it, do you have your work in there too? Did I miss something?
It just shows up in our recommendation, and then the write-up I gave you.
Right,
Some
right.
highlights at the beginning. Yep.
And is that right up in our correspondence now? As I go back to review?
If it's not, it would be in the one certainly for that meeting, but it should be
Okay,
in there.
okay. All right. Just double checking
Yeah.
where my information is.
Yep.
For the, like the outside agencies budget requests,
Mhm.
particularly like the library, I would like more detailed information about their usage, individual users, times a day that people are coming in, books that are being checked out, computer use. Just, it seems like the paper books are nostalgic to us, but not maybe the best use of all of that money. I think we can look at working that building into something very community oriented,
It's rare I see a student or anybody carrying a book.
right?
Right.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's just a large expense that I'd like to get a lot more detailed information. I can only get information from the whole system. But, you know, I know their programs, they have kids that come to their programs, that is at the same 5 to 10 children, all the programs. Yeah,
unduplicated.
right,
numbers
individual,
For start, and
Okay.
then have the program. They may have to, but then at somewhere in some point, how many citizens are actually using, individual citizens, unduplicated numbers.
that's, yeah.
We've done that, we've asked, it's been years, so it's been on.
See, I'd love to see that book movie or something, because I remember when they first started that years ago, and it was like with a fee.
Mhm.
People coming in that, and now they're not.
Mm.
The only ones that's showing up is kids that stuff at home that don't have computers and,
Well, they all have
iPads.
computers now because of the schools.
but what I mean is iPads and stuff, they don't sit and read books, you know, they pull it up and that. They, you know,
Just,
sad, but, you know.
That's how things are done. So just some specifics.
Okay. Sure. We can follow up with them and get that for you.
The elementary kids, I know that for a fact, and they're still checking books out. Under whatever the process is now, I'm sure it's not the old signed library card, but
It's a barcode.
Right.
It's a barcode. Yep.
but yeah,
Book fair.
but I think what's made actually, you know, like they got genealogy department, they got kids, they got different departments within the library. And see what this patient is per department also.
Okay.
You know, something along those lines. I think that'll help you get to what you're.
Yes. Very much so. Like the health department, you know, how many, again,
Okay.
how many county people do they see? We can get numbers. Just, I'm curious about the unique people.
Okay.
A lot of our extraneous outside budget expense.
Okay.
Any other,
And then to follow up with the library and the health department
Just for
for
next
very
year's
specific
budget.
for next year. Okay.
No rush.
Okay.
Committed to this year, but for next year.
Okay. And we can have a comment. Mhm.
I think we,
Yeah,
if everybody's satisfied, I'll put the motion to approve the budget. Is any,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
motion second, call vote?
Okay. On the move.
Yeah, I have some discussion.
Okay.
I was interested in looking at, part of our revenue. I know it's not, popular, but, we're at $3.20 for personal property tax revenue. And, given our circumstances with, I know things have leveled off a little bit, but, that was a real hit for many of our county's residents. And I didn't know if the board at all had any desire or would entertain a slight drop in that, just to kind of offset, folks who are buying cars. I knew we were trying to pass on the burden from just folks that owned real estate to folks that own personal property, but I'm not sure that was, well, I didn't vote for it in the first place, so I wasn't sure that was the fairest thing to do, but I don't know. I'm at a quandary right now because we are so strapped. Would 10 cents make a difference? Dropping it down to $3.10, dropping it down to $3. I don't know. We went from $2.97.
We should have had, when we first started setting the heavies and stuff, we built this budget on that 320.
Yep.
And, anything we cut is going to have to come out of stabilization to balance it back. And that's where Dr. Millsap said, and I'm not in agreement with that, but they're smarter than I am when it comes to finances going to be in the future.
Yep, I got
So
it.
anything we cut now, we probably have to double in the future. That's just the way I look at it.
Well, that's kind of how I'm looking at it, and yes, I understand. I'm looking at it from the perspective that, it dropped 25% from last year. Or it's
Yes.
projected to drop that. I'm looking at it from the perspective of that we may not have to raise taxes next year or the year at all.
If we watch what we're doing.
If we watch our spending. And up. And overall, I know that, yes, it was tough last year. I had to pay it too. We all did, and I understand that. But I'm like Joe, if we reduce it now, some of the localities that cut theirs last year, put it back and increased it this year. Because they had to, just because the natural order, and they didn't do anything extravagant, it's just the natural increase to cover it. And some of your real large counties had enough coming in that they cut it last year, and they're cutting it again this year. But they're